Have you ever sat quietly in the morning, coffee in your hand, sunlight coming through the window, and suddenly wondered something a little scary? What if one ordinary day your body just stops cooperating the way it used to? What if a stroke, that one word people whisper about in hospitals and family gatherings, shows up without warning? It's a thought many people over 60 quietly carry in the back of their minds. They don't always talk about it. Sometimes they joke about aging, laugh it off, say things like, well, getting old ain't for the weak. But deep down, there's that small question floating around. Am I doing enough to protect my health? And here's the surprising thing that doctors and health experts keep repeating over and over again. Something that sounds almost too simple to be real. Sometimes the smallest habits, the tiny daily rituals that take almost no time at all, can quietly help your body stay stronger, keep your blood moving, keep your brain alert, and possibly reduce the chances of dangerous events like strokes. Now think about this for a second. 3 minutes. That's it. Just 3 minutes out of your entire day. Most people spend longer than that scrolling their phone, flipping through TV channels, or waiting for the microwave to beep. But what if those 3 minutes, used the right way, could become one of the most important investments in your health after 60? Sounds almost unbelievable, right? But stay with me here, because there's a story behind this idea that might change the way you start your mornings forever. There was a man named Frank, retired electrician, 67 years old, living in a quiet neighborhood somewhere in Ohio. A regular guy. The kind of guy who fixes things around the house, even when they're not broken. Who keeps a small toolbox in the garage, just in case, and who still calls the remote control the clicker. Frank's routine had been the same for years. Wake up around 7, sit in his recliner, turn on the morning news, drink coffee, maybe eat toast, then sit a little longer and longer. Some mornings he'd sit nearly 2 hours before really moving much at all. Now, at first, that doesn't sound like a big deal, right? Millions of people do the exact same thing. But one afternoon during a routine checkup, his doctor said something that made Frank pause. The doctor leaned back in his chair, looked at Frank's health chart, and said, "Your numbers are okay. But there's one thing that worries me." Frank joked, "Doc, at my age, everything should worry you." The doctor laughed, then said something unexpected. "Your body needs movement early in the day. When you sit still too long, blood flow slows down. Your brain gets less oxygen. Circulation becomes lazy. And over time, that can increase risks we don't want, especially stroke." Frank raised an eyebrow. "So what? You want me jogging at sunrise now?" The doctor shook his head and smiled. "Nope, just 3 minutes." Frank thought the guy was kidding. 3 minutes? That sounded like one of those internet health tricks people roll their eyes at. But the doctor explained something interesting about aging bodies. As we grow older, our circulation system doesn't move blood quite as efficiently as it did when we were 30. Arteries stiffen a little. Muscles don't contract as frequently. Many seniors sit longer periods during the day. And when the body stays still for too long, especially right after waking up, circulation can become sluggish. It's like a car engine on a cold winter morning. If you slam the gas pedal immediately, the engine struggles. But if you warm it up gently first, everything runs smoother. That's basically what the doctor suggested Frank start doing every morning. A tiny wake-up routine for the body. Now here's the part that surprised Frank the most. None of it involved a gym. No complicated equipment. No intense workouts. Just simple movements designed to wake up circulation and gently activate the brain. The next morning, Frank decided to give it a shot. He sat on the edge of his bed instead of heading straight to the recliner. The room was quiet. His joints felt a little stiff. You know that feeling when the body is still halfway asleep. For a moment, he almost skipped the routine altogether. 3 minutes probably won't matter anyway, he muttered. But he remembered the doctor's words about circulation and brain health. So he started moving his feet slowly. Toes up, toes down, up, down. At first it felt ridiculous, like something from a physical therapy video. But after 30 seconds, he noticed something subtle. His legs started warming up, blood moving again. That simple ankle movement was acting like a pump, pushing blood upward toward the heart. Most people don't realize this, but the muscles in your lower legs actually help circulate blood through the body. Some doctors even call them the second heart. When those muscles move, circulation improves. When they stay still for long periods, blood flow slows. After about a minute of that movement, Frank rolled his shoulders slowly, backward, forward, the kind of movement you naturally do when loosening tight muscles after sleep. His chest opened a bit. Breathing felt easier. Then he slowly turned his neck side to side. Nothing fast, nothing forced, just gentle motion, waking up the muscles around the arteries that feed blood to the brain. When he finished, he looked at the clock. 2 minutes and 40 seconds. Well, I'll be damned, he laughed quietly. The whole thing barely took any time at all. But something interesting happened over the next few weeks. Frank started noticing small changes. Morning dizziness that used to happen occasionally, gone. His legs didn't feel as heavy when he walked outside to get the newspaper. His mood even improved. And that's something people rarely talk about. Movement changes mood. When the body starts moving, the brain releases chemicals that help reduce stress and inflammation. Those little chemical messengers play a big role in long-term brain health. You see, strokes don't always happen out of nowhere like lightning from the sky. Many times the body gives warnings for years. Slow circulation, high blood pressure, poor vascular flexibility. Tiny habits that improve blood flow can support the systems that keep the brain protected. Now let's be real for a second. No routine, not even a great one, can magically guarantee a stroke will never happen. Life doesn't work that way. But daily movement is one of the most powerful tools we have to reduce risks. And the beautiful thing about a 3-minute routine is that almost anyone can do it. You don't need fancy athletic ability. You don't need expensive gear. You just need consistency. Because consistency is where the magic lives. Think about it like brushing your teeth. One brushing doesn't protect your teeth forever. But brushing every day over years, that makes all the difference. The same idea applies to your body's circulation system. Small movements repeated daily create big long-term effects. Frank's wife noticed the change too. One morning she walked into the bedroom and saw him sitting on the bed moving his feet like he was tapping invisible pedals. She laughed. "What on earth are you doing?" Frank shrugged and grinned. "Preventive maintenance." She rolled her eyes, but a few days later, she started doing it too. And that's how habits spread, quietly, naturally, through everyday life. Before long, it became part of their mornings, just like coffee and the morning news. But there's another layer to this story that's even more important than the physical movements. It's the mindset shift that happens when someone realizes they still have power over their health after 60. A lot of people think aging automatically means decline. Slower body, more illness, less energy. But that belief isn't entirely true. The human body is incredibly adaptable, even in later years. Muscles respond to movement. Blood vessels respond to activity. The brain forms new neural connections when stimulated. In other words, the body keeps listening to what you do every day. If you sit still constantly, it adapts to stillness. If you move regularly, it adapts to movement. Frank didn't become a marathon runner. He didn't transform into some fitness influencer. He just kept doing his 3 minutes every morning. Some days he added a few gentle hand squeezes using a small rubber ball he found in the garage. Other days he stretched his arms toward the ceiling while taking deep breaths. Nothing dramatic, nothing fancy. Just little signals telling his body, "Hey, buddy, we're alive today." And maybe that's the real lesson hidden inside this simple routine. Health after 60 isn't about heroic effort. It's about participation. Participating in your own well-being. Choosing to move instead of staying frozen in place. Choosing habits that support the brain, the heart, and the body, even if those habits only take a few minutes. Because sometimes the difference between decline and vitality isn't a giant lifestyle overhaul. Sometimes it's just 3 quiet minutes every morning where you remind your body how to wake up properly. And strangely enough, those 3 minutes can ripple through the rest of the day in ways people don't expect. The funny thing about small habits is that they start almost invisibly, like a tiny ripple in water, and then slowly they grow into something bigger without you even noticing it happening. That's exactly what happened with Frank over the next several months. At first, the 3-minute routine was just a strange little experiment his doctor suggested. Something he almost forgot to do half the time. Something he joked about with his wife while pouring coffee and turning on the morning news. But gradually, it became automatic. The same way people automatically reach for their glasses in the morning or check whether the front door is locked at night. He would sit up, place his feet on the floor, take a slow breath, and begin those simple movements while the world outside was still quiet. And something interesting started happening, not just inside his body, but inside his mind too. He began feeling a little more in control of his health. That sense of control matters more than most people realize, especially after 60, when many folks feel like life is slowly taking decisions out of their hands. Retirement changes routines. Children move away. Friends grow older. Doctor's appointments become more common conversations than vacation plans. And somewhere along the way, people start believing their body is just a machine slowly breaking down, no matter what they do. But the truth is a little more hopeful than that. The body listens. Every day it listens to how you treat it. Whether you move it or ignore it, whether you nourish it or stress it, whether you give it oxygen and circulation, or leave it sitting idle like an old truck resting in a driveway. When Frank started giving his body those 3 minutes of attention, each morning it was like turning the key in that old truck and letting the engine warm up properly before driving down the road. The blood began flowing more smoothly, the muscles woke up sooner, and the brain received a fresh supply of oxygen right at the start of the day. Now here's something fascinating doctors often explain, but many people overlook. The brain uses about 20% of the body's oxygen supply, even though it only weighs a few pounds. That means circulation to the brain is incredibly important, especially as people age. When blood flow slows, the brain notices. It might show up as foggy thinking, slower reactions, occasional dizziness when standing up too quickly, or those strange moments when you walk into a room and forget why you went there. Everyone experiences those things sometimes, sure, but improving.
Circulation helps support the systems that keep the brain alert and responsive. Frank noticed that after several weeks of doing his morning movements, he felt mentally sharper earlier in the day. Instead of sitting groggily in the recliner waiting for his brain to catch up with his coffee, he felt awake faster, ready to tackle little tasks around the house or step outside for a short walk. And that's another interesting ripple effect of small habits. One healthy action often leads to another without much effort. A man who moves his body for 3 minutes might feel motivated to move it for 10 more. A person who drinks a glass of water after stretching might start remembering to drink water throughout the day. Those tiny changes stack together quietly like bricks, building a stronger wall. But let's talk honestly for a moment about stroke itself. because understanding it removes some of the fear surrounding it. A stroke happens when blood flow to part of the brain becomes blocked or when a blood vessel bursts. Without oxygen and nutrients, brain cells begin to suffer damage. That's why doctors always say stroke is a medical emergency. Time matters tremendously. However, the conditions that make strokes more likely often develop slowly over years. High blood pressure, poor circulation, stiff arteries, inactivity, dehydration, chronic stress. The encouraging part of this story is that many of those factors respond positively to consistent, healthy habits. Movement helps regulate blood pressure. Hydration keeps blood from becoming too thick. Gentle stretching improves vascular flexibility. Even small daily routines signal the nervous system to stay active and engaged rather than slipping into long periods of inactivity. Frank's neighbor Linda actually became curious about the routine after noticing him stretching on the porch one morning. Linda was 72 and had recently lost a close friend to a stroke, which left her feeling uneasy about her own health. She asked Frank what he was doing, and he explained the doctor's 3-minute advice in his usual joking tone, saying something like, "Doc told me to keep the pipes flowing." Linda laughed, but the idea stuck with her. The next day, she tried the routine herself while sitting on the edge of her bed. She described the experience later in a way that was both funny and touching. "I felt like a rusty robot trying to reboot," she said, "but after a minute, my legs actually woke up." Within a couple of weeks, Linda added a small twist of her own. She started playing music while doing the movements. Old Motown songs, sometimes a little Elvis Presley, sometimes classic rock from the 70s. Suddenly, those 3 minutes weren't just about circulation anymore. They became a moment of joy at the beginning of the day. She'd roll her shoulders, turn her neck slowly, and tap her toes to the rhythm like a teenager dancing in a living room decades earlier. And that brings us to another truth about health that doesn't appear in medical charts, but absolutely matters. Enjoyment increases consistency. When something feels pleasant, people keep doing it. When it feels like punishment, they quit. That's why complicated exercise programs often fail, while simple routines succeed. 3 minutes doesn't intimidate anyone. 3 minutes feels doable, even on lazy mornings, even on rainy days, even when motivation is hiding somewhere far away. Over time, those tiny sessions of movement stimulate muscles, encourage blood circulation, and gently remind the cardiovascular system to stay responsive. And remember, the hearts and blood vessels are incredibly adaptable tissues. They strengthen with use, just like muscles do. Even mild physical activity can improve endothelial function. That's a fancy medical term for how well the inner lining of blood vessels relaxes and allows blood to pass through smoothly. Healthy vessels expand and contract easily, helping maintain stable blood pressure and steady blood flow to vital organs, including the brain. When vessels become stiff, circulation becomes less efficient. That's one reason regular movement is often recommended for older adults. Now, imagine thousands of mornings stacked together over the years, each one starting with a simple moment of intentional movement. The cumulative effect becomes surprisingly powerful. Frank sometimes joked that his 3-minute habit was the cheapest insurance policy he ever had. It didn't cost anything, didn't require a membership card, and didn't depend on fancy equipment, just awareness and a willingness to move. Another change he made was drinking a glass of water immediately after finishing the routine. Dehydration is more common in older adults than many people realize because the sensation of thirst becomes less strong with age. When the body lacks water, blood can become slightly thicker, making circulation harder work for the heart. A simple glass of water first thing in the morning helps rehydrate the body after a night of sleep and supports healthy blood flow. Frank started placing a glass on his bedside table every night so he wouldn't forget. Sometimes he'd joke with Linda that they were becoming hydration professionals, which made both of them laugh. Humor, by the way, is another underrated health tool. Laughter relaxes blood vessels and reduces stress hormones, which indirectly supports cardiovascular health. That's why communities of older adults who stay socially connected and share laughter often appear more energetic and resilient. Humans are social creatures. We thrive when we interact, share stories, and feel part of something bigger than ourselves. And perhaps that's the most beautiful outcome of Frank's little 3-minute routine. It spread quietly through his circle of friends. A couple from down the street started doing it after hearing the story at a neighborhood barbecue. Linda told her sister in Florida, who tried it and reported feeling less creaky in the mornings. None of them were chasing perfection or trying to reverse aging completely. They were simply acknowledging that the body appreciates attention even in small doses. The message here isn't that 3 minutes magically protects anyone from illness forever. Life is more complex than that. The message is that consistent daily movement supports the systems that keep us alive and functioning. It's a gesture of respect toward the body that has carried us through decades of experiences, struggles, triumphs, mistakes, and memories. When people reach 60, 70, or 80 years old, they often look back on life and realize how quickly time moves. Days become months, months become years, and suddenly the mirror reflects someone older than the person they remember being. But aging doesn't mean surrendering control. Every morning offers a fresh opportunity to participate in your own well-being. 3 minutes might not sound like much, yet those minutes represent something powerful: the decision to care for your future self. Imagine waking up tomorrow morning, and instead of rushing straight into the day, you pause for a moment, sit at the edge of your bed, move your feet slowly, roll your shoulders gently, breathe deeply, and drink a glass of water while sunlight creeps through the curtains. Nothing dramatic, nothing exhausting, just a quiet promise to your body that you still intend to take care of it. Over weeks and months, that promise becomes a habit, and that habit becomes part of who you are, someone who participates in aging rather than fearing it. And maybe, just maybe, those 3 minutes will help your circulation stay strong, your brain stay nourished, and your days remain full of the simple joys that make life worth living.